Hi everybody, it's Chris and Marilyn from the National House of Prayer. Today we are at EFC offices, the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada. We're at their offices today with some interesting news.
So today we're going to be talking with Julia Beasley and Beth Heimstra. And before we start, first I want to thank you so much for meeting with us. And but before we actually start, would you just tell us a little bit about EFC and what your roles are here at EFC?
Sure. So the EFC is the National Association of Evangelical Christians in Canada. Since it was established in 1964, the EFC has provided a forum for engagement and collaboration among the roughly 1.7 million evangelicals in Canada who are part of our constituency. And as you mentioned, we are sitting here in the EFC's Centre for Faith and Public Life in Ottawa, where we engage with the government and in the courts on a range of issues that are of concern to the evangelical community. So I work as Director of Public Policy.
And I'm the Policy Analyst here at the EFC.
Yeah. So together we're kind of the EFC's Public Policy Department.
Okay. So today we're here to talk about MAID, and MAID is an acronym for Medical Assistance in Dying. The law for MAID passed in 2016. Initially, it was for those who are terminally ill, so it would shorten their suffering, their physical suffering. But a lot has changed in the 6 years. So I'm wondering, can you just tell us what's been happening with MAID over the last 6 years?
Sure. So since the law passed, some recent statistics tell us that over 31,000 Canadians have died by MAID. Wow. More than 10,000 of those were just in 2021. And so with the trajectory of these numbers increasing, we expect those will be even higher for 2022. But it's not just the numbers that have expanded. The impact and the reality of the law has changed. So about 2 years ago in 2021, a second track for MAID was created, which allowed people who were not dying, but who had a disability or chronic illness to be eligible for MAID. And this change, we talk about it as sort of a form of ableism, a very apparent ableism and discrimination against people with disabilities, because other people who are not dying are protected, right, under the law, but people with disability or chronic illness are outside of those protections. And it also, it strikes a blow, and I think sends a message to people who are vulnerable that maybe their lives are less worth living than others. And so, we have been hearing story after story after story in the media of people who are opting for MAID. They are eligible because they have disability or chronic illness. But it's very clear when you listen to them, and they're saying it openly, that the reason they are applying is not because of their disability or chronic illness. It's because they can't afford to live. It's because they can't afford housing, or they can't access adequate medical or home care. They can't afford their prescriptions. And so the stories are kind of, I don't want to die, but I don't want to be homeless more than I don't want to die. Or when the money runs out, I will opt for MAID. And, these kinds of stories are just unacceptable. I think it should be unacceptable to every Canadian. It should certainly be unacceptable to those of us who are Christians.
Amen. Yes.
Exactly. So out of this, what is your biggest concern moving forward? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I think our concerns are multiple. We're just starting to see and understand how the laws as they are right now are impacting Canadians who are vulnerable. People who aren't dying, but for whatever reason, whatever their circumstances, in those moments of vulnerability are making these choices. And according to the law, right, if they meet that criteria, if they have a disability or chronic illness that causes suffering that's irremediable, then they are eligible. but they are clearly saying this is not why. And so the fact that they're being approved when they're openly saying that the reason for the request is not actually their condition, it's their circumstances. And sometimes we have waiting lists for housing and other supports and services that are very, very long. And then of course, as of March 2023, people with mental illness alone will be eligible.
And that's coming up
That is coming up
very quickly.
Yeah. And this is something that I think should scare all of us. The statistics on Canadians on mental health tell us that if we ourselves are not suffering, that someone in our family, someone we love, someone who is an essential part of our lives and community is suffering. And again, those waiting lists, that ability to access care and support is often at the end of a rather lengthy waiting list.
They initially, when they came up and started talking about MAID decades ago, the warning from the Christian community was that this will be a slippery slope. And it's actually a prophetic sound that this has been beyond a slippery slope. It is like we're in a full-blown luge and they're just racing to the bottom. And so another concern is that we've heard about is mature minors. That absolutely is diabolical that this is on the table.
Yeah.
And the concerning regarding mature minors is, what is the definition of a mature minor? So where do we draw the line?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to what?
Yeah. Well, there's a parliamentary committee looking into this right now, and they're hearing from witnesses who say there shouldn't be a minimum age for medical assistance in dying, and just on a case-by-case basis, doctors would evaluate whether they think someone is a youth, is able to make a decision, an informed decision. So they have said if there has to be an age, maybe it could be 12, but they recommend no minimum age at all.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
And one of the recent witnesses also recommended MAID for severely disabled infants. So not even the veneer of choice, just the parents' decision to end the lives of their
It was
babies.
interesting, Garnet Genuis brought this up in Finside in the House recently, and the blowback that he got was absolutely, and what's scary is that people say, "Oh yeah, this seems fine. This is good. This is healthcare," and it's really scary.
Yeah, we've radically changed how we understand our duty of care, how we understand medicine, healthcare, the legal system. This has had such far-ranging implications. And what's, for me as a parent, if I put those two things together, expansion to mature minors, to people with mental illness alone, it just gives me chills even to say that. And what we've consistently found, at least here in Canada, is that when you allow access to one group, it has become very difficult to deny it to others.
Right.
And we've moved so much faster than other jurisdictions have in this regard. So the luge is not a bad image for how things have gone here in Canada.
So with this expansion that is scheduled to take place in March, is there anything that we can do, Canadians can do, the church can do? Is there anything we can do to stop it? Are they still talking about it, or is it a definite go ahead?
So the law has passed. So that is actually already legal. But what they did was they put kind of a sunset clause or a 2-year delay when the last legislation passed, to kind of give time to study and make sure we have everything in order. And if you watch the committee hearings, some of the MPs are asking that question. They are saying, are we ready for this? Have we, is this a step we're ready to take? So I think it's really important for people to be informed. I'm not sure people are really aware of where we're at with the laws and where we're headed. So to those of you who are watching, thank you. It's important that we know what's going on, and then I think, we can pray, we can speak up,
Yes.
and we can act. We're not naive. We know that it is going to take a miracle to halt this expansion to mental health, because it would require a reversal.
Right.
It would require, an amendment or something that would either hit pause or reverse course. So we need a really significant expression of concern from constituents to their member of parliament.
That's excellent. One of the things I'm going to talk to you, prayer people. One of my biggest concerns is I go to events where leaders and pastors are there, and many times this is news to them where we are. Even though we've been pressing in on this for quite a few years, EFC has been carrying this file for decades, and it is just new material. It's news. And so, could you pass this along? Be talking to your leaders. Be talking to your pastors about that. Track with us. Track with EFC. Track with the other organizations that are out there, because we're not the only ones talking about this. But what we find that pastors and leaders are not all hearing this. So we need to get the news out. Yeah.
So just wondering, do you have any last words before we say goodbye?
I think one of the things that we're really thinking about internally, and I'll let Beth talk about a resource we've been working on, but I think in this where we're concerned about where we're headed, but we also, in this where we are at now moment, I think we really need the heart of Jesus. Because where people's lives are being discarded or devalued, where they are not being supported or cared for, feeling isolated and lonely, all of these things that are pushing people towards medical assistance in dying. Pretty sure Jesus is there, and that his heart breaks, and so we should also be there, and our heart should also be breaking. And we are called to care for those who are marginalized and oppressed and in need.
The word's pretty clear. That we are to advocate. It talks about the widows and the orphans, which to me, we're talking about the marginalized, those that are poor, those that can't fend for themselves. And we, the church, that's our job. That's our mandate. God-given mandate.
I'm going to go off topic and off our notes, and I'm going to put Marilyn on the spot. But we have a testimony from one of our prayer leaders out in British Columbia, and their local church did something. Marilyn, you want to share this, what Maya had shared?
I don't remember all of the details, but I know that there was a man in the hospital, and he...
In Fort St. John's, British Columbia.
Fort St. John. And the chaplain got word that this man was looking to sign up for MAID. So he went in to see this man, and he talked with him. He went to that church and spoke to them about this man, and they all decided that they were going to not only pray for him, but they were going to come and visit him and talk with him. He was able to get out and go to one of their farms to see the animals, and just things that he wouldn't have had to do. I think what they did was they became friends. He found friends, and what they did was they brought the hope and the love of Jesus. When they came to him and asked him if he could set a date for MAID, his response was, "Don't talk to me about that. I now have a bucket list, because these are the things I want to do before I die." So it was because of the love that they brought, the love of Jesus that they brought. He totally went 180 degrees and decided he no longer wanted MAID. And this is the kind of stuff that Julia is talking about. This is what when we have the heart of Jesus, this is where we go. And it doesn't matter what the law says. If we, the church, are acting this way and moving in this direction, that doesn't matter what the law says. They're going to choose life.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been banting about with an opposing acronym. Right now it's medical assistance in dying. But Marilyn and I, this actually came up on one of our Zoom prayers, our national Zoom calls, and we kind of modify it. But how about my assistance in living? What is my role to help those people that are discouraged, that are at the brink where it just seems impossible? Now we, as the body of Christ, we can step in, and we need to pray that God would give us eyes to see and ears to hear, so that we can be the hands and feet of Jesus. My assistance in living.
That's great. Now, there are also some other practical things that people can do. So I don't know if that was part of the resources that you were going to talk about.
Yeah, well, at the EFC, hearing about the kind of ableism and discrimination against people with disabilities, and recognizing that as churches we want to be places of welcome and belonging for people with disabilities. The EFC has been working on a resource to help kind of raise awareness among churches and help all of us reflect on whether we have barriers that prevent people from being part of community life, and to kind of look at our attitudes and our accessibility. So we're hoping that will be available soon for churches.
You know, so the question we've sort of been asking is, okay, all of this is happening and we're understanding this reality. What is our response?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we want and need people to do is to speak out, to contact their MP.
Yes.
But hopefully all of us are doing that, as we are speaking out and calling on our MPs to halt this expansion, to right this wrong, to ensure that all Canadians, regardless of health status, diverse ability, social condition, are provided with adequate care and support. That hopefully, as we are doing that, we are all also, as individuals, as families, as church communities, praying and considering what is our response, what is our role in this moment, and how can we, in tangible and concrete ways, like you've talked about with that example, how can we step in and support people?
That's awesome.
So I just wanted to make an announcement. On December 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be partnering with EFC on a Zoom prayer call, which you're all invited to. The Zoom link will be posted below this video. So I just want to say thank you, Julia. Thank you, Beth, for sharing this important information today.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please share this video. And we're Chris and Marilyn from the National House of Prayer, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye for now.